very good morning to you. It's Friday, March 25th, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to it. This is how we will begin the day's edition of the program, AM Prime. Here's some of what we're coming down with this morning on the program. We'll be talking in the second hour with a group of three people concerned with ending what they call gender-based violence through education in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. David Principal Simon, Ms. Hamida Baksh, and Ms. Rowena Kalu will talk with us about what that means and what the program is to get us from where we are to that position, ending gender-based violence through education. Also, we'll be looking around the region, of course. We'll take you to St. Lucia and to the Bahamas if that time permits. And we'll also be talking with a lady who likes to be known as Josh. Her name is Elijah Smith. We'll be talking to her as Empress Ajayi on what is her latest in the creatives sector this morning. Of course, we share with you the staples, the Newsday poll, and today's figures regarding the virus in our midst, the new positive cases, totally recovered patients, and the rest of it with COVID-19 as we stand today. But we begin the program this morning continuing a discussion we had earlier in the week with a former executive member of Pan Trinbago in this imbroglio now, another one in this organization representing the steel band in movement in the country. A letter written to the Prime Minister to address the issue. We talked with Mr. Hernandez about that from the Highlanders Steel Band earlier in the week. Well, another former executive member, Brian Serrett, he wants to weigh in on the issue. He said he looked at the program and there's some issues that he would want to continue the discussion on. He doesn't necessarily agree with all of what the discussion was with Mr. Hernandez. So let's begin talking with Mr. Serrett about that. He says he wants to begin to address the question of violation of the Constitution. You know, the elections were put off. They should have been held some months ago, but the president of the association keeps saying that under the situations regarding COVID-19, that it was felt by those people who gathered that there could not have been an election. The election was supposed to have been held in October. The view is that she is illegally continuing to be president of the association. That has led us to this point. Another issue with Pan Trinbago. They've written the Prime Minister, no word from that yet. This is we're following that issue as well as to how that matter would be resolved, to what extent the Prime Minister and the state would get involved. And some people are saying that they should get involved because the state provides and proffers a great deal of the financing to support this organization. Mr. Serrett, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. So you said well, thanks for looking at the program 2 days ago. You said that there were some things that you wanted to see to what extent you can bring your perspective on it. You want to start with, is it that you don't agree that the constitution of the organization has been violated and it continues to be violated with the president's reason as to why the elections can't be held even now?
Well, the Constitution has been violated. As a matter of fact, Beverly Ramsey-Moore, and I would not refer to her as the president, I will refer to her as Beverly Ramsey-Moore, because she's not the president at the moment. She has violated the Constitution even before she was the president. But I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't go back to that.
All right.
I'll deal with that another time. But within a month or so of becoming the president, she violated the Constitution by not having a by-election. Within probably about 3 weeks coming into office, the PRO resigned for reasons which the membership still await. And instead of holding a by-election to replace her, she appointed someone to be the PRO.
Remind us who that person is, that PRO. Remind us who that is.
The one that was appointed was Whitfield Weeks.
Yeah, the one who resigned.
Sandra Awai.
Okay.
Sandra was elected in November. She resigned at the end of November. And Ms. Ramsey-Moore appointed Mr. Whitfield Weeks to an elected position. So she began by flouting the Constitution. She began her term. She has also given salaries to the members of the executive and calling it stipends. Nowhere, not even in the oil industry, you have stipends that reaches $14,000 and $15,000 and $18,000 and $20,000 a month. As a matter of fact, there are members who of that executive whose stipend is bigger than the salary that they work for. What she doesn't understand, and what a lot of people don't understand, is that you get a salary when you're doing a full-time job. When you're not doing a full-time job, you get a stipend to cover expenses involved in doing whatever you have to do for the organization. So these people are not full-time officers with the organization, but they receive a salary that she calls a stipend. So that's another violation of the Constitution. And then we have come to what is on the table right now, which is the elections, the holding of the convention and the elections. Andy Panchin-Bego has never had a problem with holding elections and holding the convention. So every 3 years, the convention is held. And again, in 2021, it was expected that it would be held. One of the things that happened for the elections is that the secretary would write the Elections and Boundaries Commission, informing them that Panchin-Bego's elections are due and when it is. And Elections and Boundaries would assist Panchin-Bego by sending a representative of the Elections and Boundaries to conduct the elections, and also by sending their ballot box to assist in the voting. So the actual election is done by representatives of the Elections and Boundaries Commission. If Ms. Ramsey Moore and her executive had any intention of holding an election, bearing in mind how long the whole COVID situation started, you would have expected, and I waited and listened for it to happen, you would have expected that they would have written to the Elections and Boundaries Commission, informing them of the date of Panchin-Bego's elections and asking for their assistance to conduct the elections. What would have happened is that the Elections and Boundaries would have responded in the positive, and they would have advised Panchin-Bego as to how the election can be held. They would have also consulted with the Ministry of Health, and all the necessary protocols would have been in place so that by the time August, everyone would have known where, when, how the elections would have taken place. But Ms. Ramsey Moore already had no intention of holding any elections, and that is evident by the statements that she would have made at every turn. Every time she's questioned, she gives another answer. The fact is that at an executive meeting held on, I think it was the 25th of September or sometime like that, the executive made a decision to postpone the convention and elections. Now, they do not have the authority to do that. The highest authority in Panchin-Bego is the convention. And no other body can change something that the convention decides on. And no other body can summarily change what is in the Constitution.
All right, let me ask you this. She said that she did that because at the convention they were supposed to have been at least 60 persons present to make a decision on that, and that there weren't 60 people at that meeting, and therefore the meeting itself was postponed or adjourned, and that she makes a distinction between the adjournment or the postponement of the meeting as opposed to the adjournment or the postponement of the election. You think that's a technicality?
No, Andy, you have just illustrated what I just said before, and that is that a meeting was held. You see, she's tying up people with the words that she used. Now, Mr. Hernandez, to his credit, Mr. Hernandez described what took place, and that is no convention was held. So there was no case of not having 60 people
Right.
or 60% of the membership. That never arose because no convention was held. It is a meeting of the central executive that was held. And as a matter of fact, at the time, the central executive might have been 6 people. I don't know if they all attended. The quorum for the central executive, I think it's 6, if I remember rightly. So maybe she had a quorum, maybe she didn't. But at that meeting is when the executive made a decision not to hold a convention. So none was ever held. So what happened was that when she started to get some blowback about not having the convention and elections, then she came up with this idea that these health regulations decides that that so many people cannot gather, therefore 60% of the people would mean so many people. So that is why the elections cannot be held. It is like after the fact. And the pressure continued, and then she started to meet, and I think Mr. Hernandez alluded to that. She started to meet privately. As a matter of fact, she developed correspondence and sent it to those bands who she thought was partial to her. So she sent to them for them to agree that the elections and the convention should be postponed. She sent it to some who were not partial to that. So that is how some of us knew what she was doing. And this is like about 3 weeks after she made the decision. So this is all in October, before the 31st of October, people were calling on the convention to be held at least by the 31st of October, as is in the Constitution. But she instead canvassed bands to sign a petition saying that the elections should be postponed. Now, Andy, a petition holds no water in respect of organizational life, except and unless it is brought in on the floor. So when the convention is held, or some sort of meeting is held, some sort of properly constituted meeting is held, then you can bring a petition. And it can be discussed and voted upon then. You do not make a petition and canvass bands and they sign it and then you say 60% or 70% or 80% or 100% of the bands agree for the postponement of the election. That is not, a petition like that has no local standard, has nothing. So she continues. Then another excuse she gave was that in 2012, there was no convention. So why they cannot have a convention now? Diaz and them didn't keep a convention. Well, Andy, the truth is that in 2012, the convention was due to be held. Beverly Ramsey Moore was a member of that executive. She was the assistant secretary. She resigned in August, 2 months before the elections was due, and decided to run for the president. She put a team together, and there were questions about some of her team, their eligibility to run for election. And Beverly Ramsey Moore took the matter to court and attempted to stop the convention. What she was able to stop was the election. But the convention was held, and on the floor of the convention, a motion was moved that the central executive that is in place now, that they remain in office until such time as the court matter has been decided. Because the elections could not be held because of a court matter brought by Beverly Ramsey Moore. So she is the one who stopped the election from taking place, and now she's trying to use that as an excuse and a reason why an election is not bound to take place. So it is the convention that decided that the executive remain in office after the 3-year term. It is not the executive who decided that upon themselves.
And that was
the convention.
Right, and that was the executive led by Mr. Diaz, who left the
end of his first term.
Yeah. And the thing is that,
right?
yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I was asking, well, what I was saying to Mr. Hernandez a couple of days ago, so Mr. Diaz did not leave the organization in the best of circumstances anyway, and you have another situation, the person who has replaced him, the organization is back in that same situation where people are looking and saying, well, what the hell is happening with this organization?
Okay, he did not leave under the best of terms. The fact of the matter is we have had what, as we would have seen in the United States recently, we have had a smooth transition of power in Trinbago over the years. We have had a smooth transition of power from Roy Augustus, Bertie Fraser, Melville Bryan, George Goddard, Arnhem Smith, Owen Serrett, Patrick Arnold. We've had a smooth transition of power. Never had an issue. We had an issue in 2018 because of Mr. Diaz and his attempt, I should say, to hold on to power and to not act in accordance with the Constitution. And here we find ourselves again for the second time. It's not something that has happened all the time.
All right.
This is the second time that we have had a flouting of the Constitution by a sitting president. This is the second time, only the second time. Mr. Diaz, in his time, flouted the Constitution, and it led to his demise, apart from other things in the Constitution that he did not follow that caused his demise. And now we have Ms. Ramsey Moore, who came in at the demise of Mr. Diaz at a convention that was called, but that was not properly held. So some of us, myself included, maintained that even this executive was not properly seated in 2018. But the Stillman men, they just wanted things to go on. So it went on. I warned them about who they are putting into office. And some of those who are at the forefront of trying to remove her from office were those who put her in office. it's those who put her in office, those who didn't accept criticisms made as to what was going on in Trinbago at the time and who would be the people best to carry us out of that. They are the ones who put Ms. Ramsey Moore in office.
Right,
and they now are the ones who are the forefront to get her out.
So you think this resembles what my grandmother's generation used to say, what's sweet in goat mouth? Sour.
Exactly. It is. It is exactly. And it's funny. That transition of power from Diaz to Ramsey Moore, and then Ramsey Moore not wanting to give up office, or not even wanting to call the election, because who knows if she had kept the election, if she would not have won.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I am for neither side. It seems that there are two teams running for office, and I support neither team, because neither team understands what is the issues and problems in Trinbago. So if they do not know and understand it, then they cannot correct it. So maybe she would have won the election and she would have been a legitimate president. Right now, she is an illegitimate president.
So what do you think
her
must
entire
happen?
executive is illegitimate.
So what do you think should happen?
Now, the first thing is that the matter should have been, it should have gone to court. The membership, those who are right-thinking and wants to follow the Constitution, and I think some action was made towards a pre-action protocol to Ms. Ramsey Moore and so on and so on. I don't know where that is right now, but that is the path that should have been taken in the first instance. They should have carried the matter to the court, to a civil court, to ensure that the contract, because what a constitution is, Andy, is a contract between members of an organization, between themselves, among each other, and whoever is the executive or their committee or whatever. It's a contract. So you don't break the contract willy-nilly like that. There are rules, there are laws, there are practices as to how things happen. That's what a constitution is. So the matter should have been brought to court. I know that attempts were made to carry to court. I don't know where those attempts are right now. Now we have before us a letter that was written by a group to the Prime Minister, and I see and copied to the NCC and copied to the Minister of Culture. And I see both the NCC and the Minister of Culture, if I may describe it, as ducking.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, and people must, when we look at how a former prime minister spoke about streams into rivers and rivers into seas.
Yeah, Robinson.
Until and unless we stop the thing where it is supposed to be stopped, it will get worse and worse. And that is what is going on with Pan Trinbago. And that is what is going on with the responsibility of the Ministry of Culture. When I was not happy, when I was not comfortable, when I found out certain things when I was the sitting vice president under PDRs, I had a meeting with the Minister of Culture at the time. The meeting was 6 weeks before the convention was due, 6 weeks before I resigned. And I explained to the Minister of Culture what I found and that I could no longer stay there because of what I found. And one of the results of my meeting with the minister was the audit that was done on Pan Trinbago. So some people try to paint me with the same brush as theirs. They don't understand what's taking place. The reason for the audit, one of the main reasons for the audit was my revelations to the minister at the time. So the audit was held. And the results of the audit caused certain things to take place. As a matter of fact, the audit gave many recommendations, none of which Ms. Ramsey Moore has put in place, and people praise her for doing this and doing that. She has put none of those recommendations in place, just as an aside. So that the minister at the time, she acted on an issue with the organization. So now you have an issue with the membership with Pan Trinbago. And by the way, there's an issue with Tuco too. And the National Carnival Commission, they are an arm of the state. And Pan Trinbago as one of the
constituent elements, the constituent elements in
SIGs
in the NIC, yes, in the NCC.
SIGs on the board, lawfully on the board of the NCC. NCC is about carnival. Bottom line, so the NCC does not really have any jurisdiction over Pan Trinbago. What the NCC is about managing carnival. That's the name, National Carnival Commission. Right. But they fall under the Ministry of Culture. The Minister of Culture has some jurisdiction over Pan Trinbago. I see he's making an excuse, and many of them make that similar excuse that Pan Trinbago is incorporated by an act of parliament, and therefore they on their own. Well, if the government takes a hands-off approach to anything that is incorporated by an act and hands-off, then where would this country be? Where would this country be? What is the purpose of having a Ministry of Culture if when there are issues and problems in culture that you say you're not responsible, or even if you're not responsible, you cannot assist her to try to ensure that it is clear that it. I have also heard Ms. Ramsey Moore speak about the Prime Minister not having time.
Well, she says that he has better things to do with his time.
He has better things to do. Well, let me tell Ms. Ramsey Moore something. Number one, that statement would have never come from any president in the past. No president of Pan Trinbago would ever say that the Prime Minister have too much time for the organization. You are the president, you are advocate for your organization, and you want to speak on behalf of the Prime Minister against your organization? But that has been the record of Ms. Ramsey Moore. She has continued to insult all the membership of Pan Trinbago. So she has said she cannot speak for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister can say, I don't have much time, but the Prime Minister wouldn't say that. Instead, what he would do, or what he should do, or what he can do,
so that's what I want to come
is appoint someone to deal with the matter.
And you think that is what should happen?
The Minister of Culture, he should instruct the Ministry of Culture to try to get to the bottom. Keep some sort of conference and really try to resolve what are the real issues of Pan Trinbago. What are the real issues?
All right, so that's what you're saying. The difficulty with these things is that so we're up on time, but so you are should I say, appealing. You think the Prime Minister has a prerogative here to take some action, whatever he wants to do to get this matter sorted out. So he should put it in the hands of somebody if he doesn't have the time to treat it himself.
And in 1971, George Goddard, who was the president-elect, followed with Eric Williams because of the Black Power. He caused another organization, which became Pan Trin Bago, to be formed in 1971. And in 1973, he held a convention in Chagaramas to deal with Pan Trin Bago and their issues at the time, the fledgling Pan Trin Bago.
Right.
That was Eric. He had a big conference in Chagaramas to deal with that. So if Eric Williams could have done that in 1973 when he had so many other things on his plate,
yes.
Then how come, it boggles the mind. It tells you that these people are not really interested in Pan and Pan Trin Bago and the future of Steelman. That's obvious to me.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but let me just say we continue to prosecute this issue because of what Pan Trin Bago is, the organization is, or what it is to Carnival. That's who we are, and therefore this organization is as important as any other in the country, in Trinidad and Tobago. So, but we have to leave it there for now, Brian Serrett.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your intervention. We will take a break, and when we come back, we look at the numbers, we look at the Newsday poll, and we go forward on the program on this Friday morning. Stay with us.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle, to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back. Well, up ahead on the program, our guests, Princess Ajay and Elijah Smith, aka Ja. They're talking about what they say is a Mother's Day show with a difference. We'll come to that in a couple of minutes. Just get through the numbers here with COVID-19 on this Friday, 25th of March, 2022. What they say. The total positive cases, the total active cases, the number of persons in hospital. So that's what you're seeing on the screen there. 123,155. That's the total recovered patients. 9,338. The total active cases. 3,727. The number of persons who died from contact with the virus. 136,220. That's total positive cases reported between March 12, 2020 and yesterday. And 366, the new positive cases in the 24 hours up to the end of the day yesterday. 167. That number keeps going down. And they say when that is happening, it means we are on the up and up. That's the number of persons in hospital with COVID-19 and related ailments. So let's get through the Newsday poll. And the question is, do you agree with the local government minister that property tax will go to serve local government? There's one response. It is supposed to, but knowing this government, this will be a coward tax. We're already paying too much tax and get nothing for it. Imagine people begging for their raise and back pay, which is due. And the Prime Minister says he could pay them, but it won't have a better job. They say this is bully thing. Most definitely, I don't think so. Taxation is theft. I already pay taxes when purchasing my property. Another response, LOL, he's just ensuring his rental is secured. And the last response is, decades now we're seeing a complete waste of our taxpayers' dollars. I don't know who far is really fooling. Look at our roads, district health and education offices, schools, hospitals, etc. Where's the evidence of development? Where's the evidence that our tax-paying dollars are being properly managed and utilized? It's time we get rid of the UNC and the PNM and give someone else a chance to properly govern this country. Well, that matter is in your hands as it is in the rest of our hands. So let's get to the program now concerning a Mother's Day show with a difference. We talk with Princess Ajay and Elijah Smith, aka Ja. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, so let's start with you, Princess. Every time I see you, I think of singing Sandra. There's any connection between the both of you? Was there?
Well, good morning again.
Morning.
And to all the viewers.
Yes.
No, there is no connection except a mother in the arts. You know, she was like a mother to all of us. But it is not the first time that people, when they meet me or they greet me, they align me with singing Sandra. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
Well, I was hoping that I wasn't the only person to notice that. But thank you very much. So let's start with you then. Talk about this program, a Mother's Day show with a difference.
Right. Well, I was a princess. I'm empress now, but
Okay.
I don't think there's much of a difference. It's Empress Ajay.
Yes.
And this is Iba. Iba is a Yoruba word meaning to give praise, to give reverence.
Yes.
And I started actually my Mother's Day show in 2019, right? And this started off at Cafe Blues, Kaiso Blues Cafe.
Yes.
Then we moved to a Little Carib Theatre. And when I did it in 2019 in Little Carib Theatre, I said to the audience, I'm going to take it south. Well, of course, COVID came in 2020 and 2021. You know, a lot of creatives couldn't do what they wanted to do physically.
Yes.
Although I kept online, I remained visible and relevant online. But, it's not the same as having a physical show. So the opportunities and the vibration presents, it's conducive for such, and here I am at Naparima Bowl on May 7th.
All right, so give us a taste of what it will look like. I mean, who is on and what people should look forward to.
Right, so this show is going to be epic. As I said, what Iba means, the show, and it's Iba to the transformation, and we would have all went through some form of transformation coming out of COVID. So the atmosphere, the type of music is that of merriment, but upliftment. We have Freetown Collective, and I think everyone knows about Freetown Collective. We have Terry Lyons on the show. We have Banjela, he's the 2020 Young King. We have added to the cast Queen Omega. She's our international reggae sensation. We have Lois Lewis. We have Shiva Manik, and of course we have Ja. And all these artists are backed by a live band. We also have Wassa Fule, Trinidad and Tobago premier West African dance group. And we have a special feature by Soul Oasis Cultural Ambassadors. So it's a well-rounded show with both dance and singing.
All right, let's bring you in, Ja. What's your contribution? How are you involved?
I am an artist, so I'll be singing.
Okay. We'll talk about, let's give us a sense of, for people like myself who not as familiar with you as probably I should be, let's get a sense of your stuff.
So my type of music, or at least the music that I'll be singing at the event, would be music that would have an African type beat to it. We know that now a main genre that is evolving and fully coming out is, well, Afrobeats, which is mostly abroad, but it is slowly and surely creeping its way into Trinidad. And so that's where my music would also be, attached to.
Yeah, you say it's slowly coming here, but maybe this is a sort of a return, because back in the 70s we had a lot of, it wasn't called Afrobeat then, but you had Mano Dibango and people like that, and producing that kind of music. So it's making a return around the world.
Yeah, making a return, definitely a return, and with a little extra of this era in it.
Yeah.
A little difference, yeah.
So give us a sense of how you sort of came through this period in these last 2 years with what the Empress was saying about how tough it was for people in the creative community to function and to continue to do their thing.
Well, what I love is that she used the word transformation. So yes, it would have been tough for some people to be able to do stuff, but when we look at the word transformation, we can pull the positive out of it. So I actually got my, let's say, music career more off the ground in COVID times, is where my music now started to travel or be known, or for myself to really be known as an artist.
So how did that work? How was that a plus for you?
Well, it's a plus for me because it's something I always wanted to do. And so I guess the quietness or the quiet time of COVID allowed me that extra time to now get into it, study the craft, and try to become. And so now, thanks to Empress, I'm on a show.
Yeah, so this is a sort of a big stage for you then, in this case. So you are continuing to be an emerging artist.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So Empress, what have you been seeing about him that you thought that he was impressive enough to be part of this cast?
All right. Well, obviously his voice, the capability to be able to sing, and I came out of the bowels of Calypso.
Yes.
Not that I've left. Sang at Calypso Review under Shagalos for 5 years.
Yes.
And we always had people who took us in their arms. And that is what is necessary for continuous growth and development. So seeing Ja and his ability and his eagerness to be involved, I said, look, as the old saying goes, everybody does need a break. Somebody had to give you a break.
Yes. All right, so let's go back to what it was like in these 2 years. You said that people in your line of the business sort of snatched the opportunity to do stuff online, but it wasn't the same. But there are some people who sort of relish that, and they thought that you'd make the best of it. What was it like doing stuff online
Well, it was really different. let me be honest, because online, I don't know if some people think it's easier. It's actually harder because a lot more resources, right, to put yourself out there. And whereas you can push hard and sell tickets physically to a show, when you're online, let me just say this, what I found, a lot of people don't like doing the technical stuff, clicking a link, using the credit card to buy a ticket, because I would have used, the paying mediums like PayPal, the FundMe, etc. A lot of people will complain, call me and say, I don't want to use my credit card. And so I had challenges in those areas. A friend told me, she said that she feel that is only in Trinidad, because out in the developed countries, that's how people live. But nevertheless, that was one of my main challenges. But I persevere nevertheless. I use spaces where we got the streaming, and it went down pretty well. I can say, just like Ja, I did not sit down for COVID. I used those 2 years to work extra hard, and it did work tremendously for me. It did work tremendously, right? I must say though, Empress Ajay is even a transformation. The original name was Warrior Empress, which most people familiar with.
Yes.
So I rebranded to Empress Ajay, and I used, even though we had a lot of challenges, at least for me, streaming, getting right guys to do the job, because you want good quality. You don't want to stream, everybody's looking at you and your audio is bad. They're not going to forgive you with that. That's going to remain in people's mind what they see. So it's very important when you're doing a visual show to have these things in place. And I had some hiccups with those things, but in the end, it really worked well for me. I gained a lot more followers. And I always tell people, if you go to a physical space and the capacity is 500 and you sell out your show, 500 people come and see you, that's the end of that. But when you have a recording, you don't know where that could go. So those are the positives for me in a visual show, in a virtual event.
Yeah.
That could reach any part of this world.
Yeah, I get that there's a great deal of spirituality with you and in the person you are. I suspect that is why you moved from being Warrior Empress to just Empress Ajay. Is that correct?
Andy is a bright fella, but you are an icon, a media icon. So of course, a wealth of knowledge and wisdom is present. Yes, this is my foundation, and again, I believe that's why people align me with Singing Sandra. We are of the same belief system, and that for me, everybody does what works for them, and actually that is a song I wrote, Ibashe. So what I do works for me, and it keeps me grounded, and it transcends through my music. The transforming from one name to the next, the way I live. Being positive, just embracing life in a whole positive attitude and going forward. And it has been working for me thus far.
Yes, well, certainly. So let's come back to Ja. Are you looking forward to making the most of this opportunity? What do you...
Yes, for sure I am. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, so what kind of hours you putting in perfecting what would be your performance? How do you work on that? And you have a team with you as well?
Well, everything will be done with and through Empress Ajay, where we would have rehearsals. So I'd have rehearsals with her, we'd have rehearsals with a band. And so all the timings would be up to her. But yeah, I know that some hours well are coming up.
Yeah, but you're not sort of sweating at your fingers and having conniptions, as they say.
Nah, no, none of that. None.
All right, so let's go over the cast, Empress, and remind people what they will miss if they miss this.
Right, you don't want to miss Terry Lyons. She's an awesome, electrifying performer. The 2020 Calypso Monarch Terry Lyons, she would be present. And she's an individual that is so supportive. Not just me, she supports any artist who is, doing a venture similar to mine. She's there. We have Banjela, and I like to say he has that thunderous voice. Banjela is awesome. He is the 2020 Young Kings, right? He sings out of the South End, the South Calypso End.
Yes.
We have Queen Omega. Wow. I just say wow with Queen Omega when she opens her mouth, So she's also there. And of course, Freetown Collective. I think they're in Texas right now. SXW. I'm trying to remember the acronym, but they're in Texas right now.
South by Southwest.
South, right. They're representing Trinidad and Tobago along with other artists. So they are going to be there, of course. We have Lois Lewis, and she's the founder, composer of June Agape Choir, the junior choir from South. Most of us will be familiar with that choir. We have Shiva Manik, and he plays the tabla. He's going to be there, adding some variation as well. We have Wasafuli, West African Dance Group. Wasafuli is a powerhouse by themselves. Soul Oasis Cultural Ambassadors, they would have won Best Village, I think it was 2018. And they would be coming to do a short feature. But, we have other side acts as well. We have drumming taking place as you walk into the space to give that welcoming feeling. It's going to be really, really fantastic.
Right. How do people get tickets?
Right. Tickets, you can call 482-3111, 482-3111. I hope I remember all the numbers. 343-2526, especially for the people in South.
Yes.
343-2526. If I don't remember all the numbers, I'm sure I remember those two. You can call. And on the day of the event at the Naparima Bowl box office, you can get tickets on the day of the event.
And what's the day again?
The day is May 7th. It's the Saturday before Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, hey, it's Mother's Day. No, it's the Saturday. Mother's Day is the Sunday.
Right.
Right? So it's May 7th, 2022. Showtime is 6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right, let me just call the numbers out again. 482-3111 and 343-2526. And it's called EBA 2.
The Transformation.
Right. A Mother's Day show with a difference on May 7th,
Definitely.
2022. Well, all thanks to both of you and best wishes to both of you.
I want to say as well,
really appreciate it.
I want to say thanks to WESN for starting off our series of interviews, because I know, as the days roll by, it's going to get really busy. So I want to say thank you to you, Andy. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Being interviewed by an icon, and to the whole team at WESN. It's my pleasure and appreciation.
All right. Thank you very much to both of you. We look forward to a great show.
Thank you. It will be.
All right. All right, so let's take a first look around the region. Now we go to St. Lucia, where they say there's a crisis with people trying to fund NGOs, and here's a call from one of the big figures there to do that. We get this report from DBS St. Lucia TV.
The recent disappearance of 16-year-old Haley Davy and 15-year-old Darlene Daniel Pilty had sent shockwaves across St. Lucia as the public frantically searched for the missing teens. However, many questions have been raised concerning their safety and well-being, with the teens eventually having been found. A social worker at the St. Lucia Crisis Center, Joan Sylvester, says most of the issues plaguing vulnerable persons, particularly young females, start with a lack of communication at home.
Some of the young people that come to us at the Crisis Center, they present insecurities about who they are. There are difficulties in their family lives, there's difficulties at school. They feel unable to speak to anyone, they feel unable to speak to their parents, and I guess in a way that's a little bit because there is no proper, cohesiveness within the family home for many reasons. Some people might say it's poor parenting, some people might just say, well, it's an unruly child. But anyhow, they can't even speak to their teachers or the school counsellors. So they will come to us with their trouble, difficulties.
Sylvester reveals that the work done by the center is to help vulnerable persons resolve particular matters and help them feel better about themselves. For example, Sylvester, in highlighting the disappearance of Haley Davey and Darlene Pilty, recognized that counseling is required if the parties are to move past the incident.
The young people will have experienced post-traumatic stress in all of this, and hopefully they will receive counseling support. And I believe parenting support is necessary as well, because don't forget, these parents have experienced the trauma as well. As for the victims, I believe there is a law process, and that should really play into it. That should be advocated. Post-traumatic stress can show in many forms. A person could be displaying anger, could become more introvert and depressed. And you know, depression leads to mental health if untreated. So this young person may suffer mental health issues later on in life. And one of the triggers to mental health is when they're in childbirth or pregnant. Shortly after pregnancy, mental health issues could develop. So it would be very, I guess the word is supportive, if they did receive counselling support. It would be very useful.
Sylvester reveals that more support should be given to NGOs that deal with vulnerable people to address various deficiencies in handling such matters.
Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be harbouring a young person. Even if they go to stay with you willingly, they are not their official carers stroke parents. They haven't got parental rights. So if you're saying that you're looking out for someone who is being harmed within their own family home and you're looking out for them, you shouldn't be keeping them. There are professionals who you should be reporting it to, and they will deal with it. When I say professionals, I'm talking about human services, and they will deal with the matter. Come to Crisis Centre and report that to us. We will do our investigations and report it to human services as well, or the Vulnerable Persons Unit. We'll report that to them for them to make the inquiries, the necessary inquiries.
Sylvester encourages the public to pay closer attention to the more vulnerable among us and ensure that all safeguards are in place. For the DBS News World, I am Jason Darius.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard. and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
All right, welcome back to the program. Up ahead, we're talking about what we call ending gender-based violence through education. We're talking to a couple of people about that, including Ms. Rowena Kalu and Ms. Hamida Baksh. We get to them in a moment, but let me just share with you what's on the front pages of these newspapers, our partners in this business, at least on the station here, WESN. Newsday, and this top story in the Newsday this morning, what a mess. The Chief Secretary says he found documents missing in the state of the official residence at the THA in Tobago. That's in the front of the book. And Mr. Augustine saying that the THA is considering legal action against someone for unreturned devices. Mr. Joel Jack, he was the finance secretary then. And these other stories in the Newsday this morning. Just show you the front page of the paper. And that's the back page. And in the Newsday Tobago, the story is about reopen with max flights. And they're saying that there needs to be more flights between Tobago and Trinidad, and then from Tobago elsewhere to in and out of the country. So that's a quick look at what's in the paper in the Newsday this Friday morning. Let's get to the discussion now about ending gender-based violence through education, not just through exhortation. And with us at the moment is Rowena Kalu and Ms. Hamida Baksh. She's the former principal at Success Laventille Secondary School. Good morning, and this is an event that was held to mark International Women's Day 2022, correct? Good morning. Who wants to go, Rowena?
Good morning, Andy. Thank you for having us on. Actually, this was an event that was held to mark the 16 days of activism against violence. So it was held in 2021.
Yeah.
In December 2021.
All right, but it wasn't sort of revived around International Women's Day this year. That's
Well, what we have been doing is we have been sending, because it was so well attended and we received such positive response to the webinar. What we've been doing is sending out our press releases and information for You're Correct for IWD.
all right. So, Mrs. Basham, good morning. Good to see you. Well, let's start with you. So, you were a school principal, and they're talking about you were right. You retired now.
Yes, I was retired in 2019.
Oh, okay, you don't look that way.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All right, so let's talk about, so as a school principal, addressing this issue, let's go beyond, you know, the talking, the appeals and the marches and so on, through education. Let's talk about that, and how do you put something like that in place to change the consciousness of those who will inherit this ground?
Right. Well, Andy, what we found at Success Laventille is that, of course, the perception of students as well coming in from violent backgrounds or violent-based background, you know, what we as principals and teachers have to do at all times is really to help a child cope with the violence and change the outlook that they can have about the expectation of it as being a normal response, or the fact that we need to let them know that they can change what they are experiencing and value education as well to get them out of that situation. And one of the things we have to do is always be mindful of what we can offer students as part of the support system to cope with it, and give them more in an engaging experience in the school system that can give them the outlet to cope with it or to redirect their energies, which most times you find they will try to express that kind of frustration, disappointment, reaction to it, you know, in the things that you see at school, which we commonly call school violence. But you find you have the children who are overt in expression, they'll look for bullying, fighting with other students, or some of them may be, you know, retreat into themselves and they become very unnoticeable, and you have to pick it up. You have to be keen and pick it up and see how you can draw the student out to let you know what's wrong. And having supportive teachers, very observant teachers in the system is really critical to helping a child. We were fortunate, and we are fortunate at the school, that we had our school social worker, we had guidance officers, we had safety officers, we had the support of community police, we had Hearts and Mind, and we had a lot of NGOs that came into the school. I brought in a lot of the NGOs to assist the students, especially with programs that would look at female-based violence, your sexual problems that you have, the incest and all of that. And, you know, sometimes we had programs that from the Heroes and the Roots Foundation that looked at issues affecting the boys with gender-based violence. And we looked at things for bullying. And one of the things I introduced into the school, because I thought it was a good way, we did not have a playing field at Success. And therefore, how do you get that youthful pent-up energy out? And there was this time when boxing was being introduced into the system as part of, non-contact, but giving them the out. And I really grasped that as a good opportunity for them to, have something else to beat up on, which is your boxing, the bags. And it really was a success. I was very interested in looking at the number of girls that wanted to participate in the boxing. And because they saw it as part of self-defense, they also looked at some of, we had a good success story with it, because we had a student who really was a bully. And she benefited, and she now carries the torch of why you shouldn't be bullying. But the boxing helped her to exercise that bit of frustration and energy and all her, tensions that she came to school with. In a simple exercise like that. I introduced yoga to help students also know that, there are other ways that you can deal with violence rather than just, get on to somebody else to do it. So getting in control of yourself was also another way of trying to look at how you can cope and develop a different way of looking. Because you're looking at how do you make people a little bit more peaceful rather than violent. And the more we put programs that will, and the more we interact with people peacefully, I think it helps them to see a different way of reacting to the world, that there is more of a reasoning sort of attitude that you can look at dealing with your problems or coping. And I must say that, it was a good way of helping children when you give them all the other extracurricular activities that we're accustomed traditionally to offer in the schools. The music programs, the cadets were something that I really valued in the school system because it gave the boys and girls another way of expressing and engaging themselves in something rather than having to just look at, going back home into a situation where nobody's caring about how you feel, how you think. I also use a lot of faith-based organizations to come in and help children see things more. And it's really changing the way how people think about violence, not as the norm or not as, it's the West Indian way we do things, but it's really a different approach that we can care, look at compassion as another important value system to bring into both teachers and the students as well. So it's a whole community approach to dealing with violence and that kind of way we reacted.
Yeah, I want to come back on that as to what extent you think that the example you're setting in your school, to what extent that there's support from the Ministry of Education, from the policy decision makers to make this thing, to populate the sort of agenda in school, the curricula across the board to address this issue. But let me just bring you in, Rowena. I mean, so we go back a long time, and you doing this work, in these agencies such as this, the NGO community for a long time, and I'm trying to understand these things. I'm looking at the statement here that was put out on the occasion of addressing this issue around March 8th, and one of the points that sticks with me, it says that this issue about gender-based violence has become endemic. The solutions seem hard to find. So, in spite of all the work that you all have been doing, what's your sense of, I know, comfort or discomfort with the fact that it's become endemic in the society rather than being in a much better place that you all had hoped you would be in this time?
Right. Well, I think that the work we have done, to give credit to the work, has brought a great deal of awareness. I mean, as you say, Andy, I've been with this thing a long time, since I was a young person. And I remember marching through the streets of Port of Spain. It was just like 5 or 10 of us, Merle and Ruda, and 1 or 2 of us, with our little candles, calling on the public to be aware of and to end it, and actually getting heckled. To see today where, on IWD or for the 16 days of activism, there is just so much public awareness, so many campaigns, so many newspaper articles, radio interviews, women speaking out on their issues. The police have set up a special department to deal with GBV. People like Roberta Clark and Gayatri Paragas, and they have been responsible with the ministry for creating so much legislation. So I would say that the work has brought a great deal of awareness, and it has created the kind of legislative framework you need to support women and to show that there is in the society a strong moral, a strong ethical stance against GBV, right? Gender-based violence. So I think that's really important, including a movement now to looking at people of various sexual orientations and violence against them, violence against men, violence against children. So I think that awareness has really been brought about. However, I think that endemic part has to do with the fact that gender-based violence is not something that you jump up one morning and decide that you'll beat your woman or that you will murder someone. It's something that has a long history and is part of culture And in changing culture, you have to change socialization. And one of the main reason that we had this seminar was to move away from just looking at the end point, which is where you are doing the punishment, and start looking at the beginning, which is how we socialize young people. How do you move from an innocent baby to a rabid perpetrator, or to somebody who has absolutely no control of their emotions, to somebody who feels that, you have some ownership over women? I mean, how do you move from that sense that, yes, this is a punching bag, as Hamida say, I can take my frustrations out here. This person belongs to me. If I can't make it, they can't make it. You don't move to that when you reach 30 or 40 or 50, because we've seen a lot of elderly men involved in it. You move to that over the course of several decades. And school is one of the main socializing institutions outside of the family and the wider culture. And children spend, from 5, sometimes from earlier, to 16 in school. And they spend the majority of their day in school. So as Hamida is saying, school has power, and teachers and principals have agency. One of the things she pointed out, and we did some interviews with students, and it came out very clearly, is the need for holistic education and the importance of extracurricular. For that matter, I have stopped calling them extracurricular, and I think of them as co-curricular, because they are so important in shaping the social being of students. And I tell you, Andy, one of the things that we really have to look at is our mad rush for exams and scholarships and who came first and who came last, and start having a mad rush to developing that good citizen, that person who can understand their emotions, who can deal with conflict and stress, who has a sense of social justice. That's what we should be rushing to create. And I'm so sorry that Mr. Simon of QRC isn't here, because what they did was they had a project which they did with the Institute for Gender Development Studies, the Red Card Rape Project, and they introduced the boys very deliberately to trying to understand male-female relationships and how these relationships can splinter apart and where women stood in the relationship. And at the webinar, we had one of the students, one of the boys, that was so great, who came on, and he talked about what it meant for him to hear the girls' side, because they also brought in the girls to speak about how they felt. And the fact that in being a boy, and you see how these things become ingrained in you, it just becomes part of the society that they didn't think about, well, if you, as we call it in Trinidad, suiting a woman, or if you're making certain kind of comments that the person would be uncomfortable. And we just take it for granted that, okay, they go to school and they learn good values and they move out. But children are exposed to a wider society, and now with social media, they're exposed to an even wider set of values. And I think if schools and the systems that support schools, the state agencies that support schools, do not move deliberately into addressing the problem will continue, and we will always be dealing with it at the end point.
All right, so Ms. Bax, so how do we get to that point where it becomes part of the whole program of education that the Ministry of Education will adopt and make it part of the curriculum, make it part of the culture of education?
Well, Andy, it's sort of not, I think, addressed as a topic in itself. I think the Ministry of Education kind of looks at it as Rowena said, the end point. How do we deal with it when it manifests itself as violence in the school? But the proactive approach, and I think, the ministry has sort of understood that we need the social workers, but again, there's a deficit in the numbers of social workers that you cannot have a school having a dedicated social worker. We were fortunate that we had one, but we shared it with other schools. So not unless the ministry could get every school to have its guidance officers dedicated, because the school population and the ratio of students needing the social worker and the guidance officer is really, you have a school with almost 1,000 students, and then you have one social worker. And think about it. Almost every child in a classroom needs that kind of support. Not only the deans are teachers as well. So you do not have a dean being dedicated to understanding, and it takes a lot of work out of them, and it almost derails them from their duty of teaching, being a good teacher in the classroom, because you have to give so much support to the student in terms of the parents as well, because we did a lot of work, because the problem is never the child alone. The problem has to do with a support system that they either lack or they are having the problem with. And so part of principalship, I think, is to also embrace that a child's problem in the school has to deal with a child's problem at the home. And, there were times when we almost had a panchayat system in Success with me, having to invite, just not only the parent and the stepfather and the child father and the uncles and aunts, because they are all part of the problem. And so therefore you have to embrace a problem of violence, not only with the child, but in a context of a family, in a context of what is happening in the community as well, And it takes a lot of time. So the Ministry of Education has to understand that the amount of time we have to put in, it's not about only racing, as Rowena said, to the scholarship. Literacy is a big deal as well. We have an expectation that when you come into the secondary school system, you are literate already. And many of the times you have the children not up to standard with literacy, and therefore that brings a certain amount of stress, and you find that it will come out in violence as well, because you have the teasing and the bullying and so on going on, and then you have to deal with that. So I think the Ministry of Education, has to really expand the resources available to schools and teachers to help with that movement towards peaceful schools.
Yeah, and the question of bullying, that itself, it comes from somewhere, sometimes deep trauma and other feelings in children who, that's how they tend to work out their own anger and their own insecurities and so on.
And one of the things that I know I took up a lot of my time as a principal, and I gave it my time because I thought it was that important. I remember parents saying, "Missy child," I said, "Well, a child needs that kind of time. And, well, they're missing maths and they're missing the English." I said, "They will miss a lot more if you don't address it now." And sometimes, school is really so much a family and a professional environment for students. You have to give the students a lot of care, love, attention, all these things that sometimes takes more time out of you than having to worry about whether they are missing their class and so on. Because if you don't deal with them at a human level, you are not going to get the results academically that you are so wanted to pride yourself on. I mean, why we would love to know that Success gets lots of scholarships and so on, but what is the value? And I remember my first principal of the school, Mr. Hollis School Trust, always said to us, it is more important that we develop good human beings, that we develop good mothers and fathers out of the school system rather than the scholarship person who just, sometimes just disappears into non-existence after their shining times, And I think that stayed with me as to what was the role of a principal, really. We deal with the average child who may not necessarily have scholarship. And I believe that as lifelong learners, education goes on till we die. So we don't have to hustle the scholarship. The scholarship will naturally come because you understand learning and how to learn, and you become a lifelong learner. So it was more important, I think, for us to develop a good human being and let them know that they have to be better parents, because that's one way to break that cycle of violence. If you can take them away from what their parents are showing them what is the, a hard slap, it's good for you.
Yeah.
No, the hard slap is not good for you. It is better for you to sit down and let me have a conversation with you as to why you think you should change, why this is not good, how it is impacting on everybody, and how, most of all, you can be at peace with yourself.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, Rowena, just let's, as we take us out on, so where to from here? What's the activism on the basis of which this thing will become more and better adopted in the education system?
Well, I think the webinar was the beginning, Andy, and it was very successful. I think that, again, I'm really sorry QRC isn't here, but I really feel that you should have them on with IGDS to describe that program. I think that just as we did the advocacy for legislation and for awareness, we have to move into advocacy for socialization. So really beginning to work with youth groups, working with the IGDS and other communities who can develop programs which can enter schools. So Hamida talked about introducing boxing, right? QRC would talk about introducing their Red Card project. She's Royal. That was the name of their project. So I think there needs to be much more, people focus on the Ministry of Education, but there needs to be a much more community-based approach towards schools. And that's one of the things that Hamida brought out, that what she did as principal was to draw on her community resources. So I think the advocacy has to go there, drawing on community resources, actually lobbying for policy which makes gender-based violence part of the curriculum, part of the co-curriculum, and building awareness of how much and how powerful schools are in shaping the socialization of boys and girls.
All right, so let's make this commitment. You talk with Mr. Simon. We will schedule the time.
I will. Okay, will do.
All right, thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Andy, for having us and making this issue, one for public airing and reflection.
Thanks to both of you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, just before we go, let me just tell you something about what my views are on some of these matters. Yesterday, when we spoke with the former Minister of Agriculture, one of the things he said was that, so he had made some reports about misbehavior in office, so to speak, by people in his ministry with the distribution of land and so on. And he said that the matter was taken, the Prime Minister took the matter to the Public Service Commission, and 3 people had been on suspension from his ministry for that, and that they were reinstated without any reference to him as the principal witness in the matter, the principal complainant in the matter. Something seems to be wrong with that, and we need to go into that some more. But that's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. That's how we wrap this week up of programs here on AM Prime. We tell you can stay with us on all our social media platforms. You could send your emails to amprime@wesncc. And 10 o'clock this morning, you will see my interview with Ambassador Brian Glynn. He's the EU Managing Director for the Americas, and he was in Trinidad and Tobago, and then he went to Barbados and St. Lucia, selling this idea of what they call the Global Gateway. That's what I call the EU's response to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So that's up at 10 o'clock this morning. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. News at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small.